Hello and welcome to Mellow Labs. On today's episode, I'd like to make a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. See, recently I have been taking my health a little more seriously, so I've been going to the gym 5 days a week, and on the weekends I do cardio. I try to run at least 10k over the weekend, and obviously I track everything. My watch does my heart rate, my exercises, my steps, my sleep. I have a scale, blood pressure monitor, temperature sensor, and I have an app to track all my nutritional stuff so I know what I'm putting into my body. And I realize that this is probably just a hyperfixation that I will burn out of relatively soon, but until that happens, I'd like to track one more thing. So today, I'd like to make a device to track my toothbrushing habit, because sometimes I just forget to brush my teeth. Now, I looked into smart toothbrushes and they go anywhere from like £70 all the way to like £300, and I looked into it. It doesn't really make a difference what kind of toothbrush you have, because most of it is just method. Just watch a 5-minute video on YouTube that teaches you how to brush your teeth and you're pretty much good. But that doesn't stop me forgetting to brush my teeth. So what I want to make is a smart toothbrush holder that lets me use whatever cheap disposable toothbrush I've picked out, and then checks whether I've used it and then put it back after a set amount of time. So it will then, send that information over to Home Assistant and ping me like, hey, you didn't brush today, or like, hey, you didn't brush as long as you should have, or like, hey, you did a perfect job, well done, get a cookie, but don't really because it's probably full of sugar, whatever. That's the plan. I want to make a smart toothbrush holder that communicates with Home Assistant. Yeah, that's the plan for today. So I'm gonna get back to you with what I have planned out right after this message from today's sponsor. JLCPCB has exactly what you're looking for, whether you're a beginner trying to make your very first PCB or a professional looking for more advanced options. JLCPCB has you covered. Need a simple board just to bring an idea to life? They can do that. Need something a little more serious, like a transparent flexible PCB with aluminum backing and V-Rin pad for space saving and an ENIG finish? Well, JLCPCB can handle that too. Getting started is super easy. Just click and drag your Gerber files into jlcpcb.com, select what options you'd like to use, and you get an instant quote. Now, I know all of that might sound really expensive, but it really isn't. Because of JLCPCB's large scale, they can bring the savings down to you, and they pretty much always have some kind of deals or coupons going on. Like right now, you can get $30 off of a 6-layer PCB, which brings the starting price down to just $2. And if you're a new user and you click the link in my description, you can get $123 in new user coupons, which makes your first few routing mistakes a lot less painful. JLCPCB does everything in-house with strict quality control at every step, and you can see that progress in your dashboard as you're waiting for your order. And for more complex boards, they'll even x-ray them and send you the images so you can see that everything is placed correctly as it should be. Check out the links in my description, and when you think PCB, think JLCPCB. Easy, affordable, and reliable. Okay, so I started off by spending a couple hours over my weekend just kind of figuring out what I want the toothbrush holder to actually be like. So I started off by giving myself a little list of musts. So it has to hold 2 toothbrushes, one for me, one for my partner. It has to be able to count when you're actually using the toothbrush. It has to be low power so that we can run off of a battery for multiple months, hopefully, and then work with Home Assistant, rechargeable battery, and easy to clean. And then I kind of started thinking about how I actually want to hold the toothbrush. I don't want a little cap at the bottom because all the water goes down and then makes the cup dirty. But I kind of settled on this kind of hook, which has a 3D printer like limit switch behind it. So it uses the weight of the toothbrush to actually push onto the switch, so it knows when the toothbrush is there or when it isn't. So hopefully that's a good design. We'll test that out in a minute. And then kind of just how I want the whole thing to be laid out, more or less. I kind of want the actual hook part to be removable so that if you need to clean it, you can just remove the front and clean that and not actually have to deal with any of the electronics or anything like that. So all of this is currently in my head, and I have a vague idea of what I want it to look like. And the only way for me to actually show you what I think it's going to look like is just to jump into CAD and start designing stuff. So without any further ado, let's go into Fusion. Type, 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 type. Okay, so I 3D printed a little test piece that can hold the toothbrush there and lets me actually play around with the position of the limit switch so I know where to put it for it to actually actuate when I take the toothbrush on and off. But as you can tell, it doesn't actually work. The toothbrush is just too light for it to actually turn the switch on and off. So I played around with like different switches. I've got slightly different variants, but they all seem to be, they all require more weight to actually turn on and off. Like I could get different ones with like much longer levers on the end, but I don't have that kind of time. So I went through the different drawers of parts that I have available to me, and I came across some of these. These are the track sensors from a previous video that was a absolute failure, and I realized that this might actually do the job. So let me power these up. So now, if I put a toothbrush in front of it, it actually turns the little LED on. Now, these are pretty power efficient. They basically just sip on power. And if I remove that LED, it shouldn't affect the battery life that much, I hope. We'll see. But yeah, because the switches don't work, I'm going to go with this. And theoretically, because there's no actual moving parts, it's less maintenance, so it might be better. But yeah. These are just the switches I'm going to go with for the design. Design me a case that holds 2 IR track sensors, an ESP32C6 Beetle, and a small LiPo battery in an enclosure with 2 little toothbrush hooks so that I can put the toothbrush hooks on and off, and the little IR sensors that are behind it are a good distance away so that it can actually detect whether a toothbrush is on or off. Design. Oh, we don't have an AI for that yet? Shit. Guess I'll have to do it myself. Okay, so I've printed the new enclosure. I can put my little track sensors on here. I need to put some heat press inserts in a couple places, but that's gonna go there. And then on the front of that, we're gonna have this case, which just reveals the sensor. And then I have these little toothbrush holders, which hold the toothbrush. And the nice thing is, because you can kind of model different toothbrush holders for different toothbrushes, you can exchange them because they screw in from the other side, and that will hold the toothbrush at the perfect position for it to be detected. So now I need to put in a couple of heat press inserts and then put the electronics in. And no, I'm not keeping it this color. This is mostly just for prototyping to see if my ludicrous idea has any kind of footing in reality, which sometimes they don't, but it's for another video. Anywho, let me put in some heat press inserts and do some of the electronics. Okay, so I've got everything wired up. It's currently just running off of the USB. I didn't put the battery in there just yet, so I can play around with code and things like that. And if I put my toothbrush on here, I don't know if I'm able to show you that, but there it is. There's an LED in there which comes on and off when I put the toothbrush on and off, and it does actually hold my toothbrush. It's yeah, I did have to modify it a little bit. I didn't put a hole for the USB port up here, so I had to cut it out, but it does work. So now I'm going to just write some code that tells me whether a toothbrush is on or off. Just a very basic Arduino script, so I know that it all works the way I know it should work. And then we'll continue on to the next steps. Okay, so the script is running. If I now grab the module and I put my toothbrush on here, it detects it. And if I put it on here, it also detects it. And if I cover this one, it detects both of them. Beautiful. There is, however, a downside. So I did some very rough calculations to see how long the battery would last. I'm using an 1600 milliamp hour battery. And when I first did the maths for this, I used the maths for these switches and for the ESP32 to be in deep sleep mode for most of the time, and that came to about 8 or 9 months, which is pretty good. However, with these track sensors, that is pretty much just hemorrhaged down to like 3 days. If I remove the LED, maybe I can push it to like a week, but that's still pretty bad. I'm going to continue with this nonetheless, just so I can have a kind of a proof of concept, just to make sure that this would work in my day-to-day life. So I'm not even going to bother reprinting the enclosure, honestly. I'm just going to keep it in this crappy looking one, and then maybe I'll do a version 2. So next steps are to install the battery, make sure it's nice and charged, implement the code with like deep sleep and that, and get it to communicate with Home Assistant, and then we'll see how long this lasts in my life, because I don't want to invest a lot of time into something that I might not use every day. So code, let's do code. Actually no, let's do battery then code. I know how things work.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Actually, no. So I've been sitting here kind of playing around with the switch and the toothbrush, trying to think of like what would be the best way of doing this so that I could still use the switch, because the battery life on this just bugs me too much. So I'm thinking, what if I, instead of like having it push against like that, what if I flip the switch like this, and then have the actual holder be a kind of lever which puts the entire weight of the toothbrush onto that switch, right? That might be heavy enough. I do not know. So I'm gonna just kind of 3D print a little test piece that will let me test that and see if there's any footing in this. If not, I will continue with this. But for now, I wanna investigate this approach. Okay, so I've got it set up, and unfortunately, unless I add more weight to the toothbrush, it's still not pressing that button. So I can either make the toothbrush heavier, or I had another rummage around my drawers and stuff, and I came out with a very tiny a reed switch, a magnetic switch, which triggers when there's a magnet nearby. So I'm thinking, what if I instead use a magnet switch here, because they use 0 power right there, and the whole thing falls apart. You put the switch there, and then when I put the toothbrush in, and a little magnet here obviously, and then when I put the toothbrush here, it makes contact, and then when I remove the toothbrush, it goes down, right? That might work. I do want this to be quite a bit smaller, because that's way thicker than I want it to be. If I can get it to work in this same kind of thing here, that might just do it. But I think I need to play around with the design a little bit more. But I think the reed switch might be doable. Another thing I kind of wanted to avoid is making it so that anything that the toothbrush touches, because the toothbrush will have water like running down it sometimes. When you put it into something like this, it will like gather water, and eventually it will just go gross. So you want to be able to remove it and clean it. So something like this would work, but I don't know how. I need to play around with the design a little bit more to see if I can actually make it work in an enclosure and everything. So I'm gonna go back to my book and do some doodling, and maybe, hopefully, the reed switch is the savior we've all been waiting for, or at least I've been waiting for. Okay, I've printed it out. It's 2 separate parts. That goes in here, and there's a magnet on the back of this one. And if I put my toothbrush on here, it goes up like that. So theoretically making contact and then dropping it. If I put my actual reed switch, which I've got connected to my multimeter, so it beeps every time we get a connection. And if I put it here and I do that, it gets stuck up here, which is very annoying. If I have to kind of finagle it for it to be the right distance away from the magnet so that it makes a connection but doesn't have the magnetic attraction, like there. That's perfect. So now if I put my toothbrush on, it detects it, and then it doesn't detect it, and then that keeps coming undone. But theoretically this works. So I'm going to refine this a little bit more, find out exactly the distances I need for this magnet to activate the switch without having the magnetic pull, and figure out a way to actually make this work reliably and consistently. But yeah, this is a way of doing it. The reed switch might just come in and save me. Okay, excuse my sweaty appearance. I just came back from the gym. I got a notification when I was at the gym that my print finished printing. So here it is. This is like the main part. This is very prototypey. It's not done yet, but this is the main part. And then this is the actual like toothbrushing, toothbrush holding thing there. And that just kind of clips in with these little compliant thingies. So it just clicks onto here and it stays. And now if I remove it, put it back, remove it, put it back, it works perfectly. I've got the read sensor right there underneath, and I've got the magnet there. I've kind of flipped it from what I had in the previous version, because I had the magnet on top and that didn't work as reliably. But here, as long as the magnet is like held in up here with the toothbrush weight, it works perfectly. I've got the same thing on the other side, but I don't have the second read switch, but like it actually works pretty well. And for like when they get dirty, you can just take them out, clean them, or change them if you have a different head of toothbrush to fit it better. Oh, that's perfect. I don't particularly love the look, but maybe, you know what? I'll give it like a little robot face and it's gonna be cute. Great for the kids. But yeah, it actually works really well. So I'm gonna go refine this even further. Well, actually no, I'm gonna go shower, then I'm gonna eat, and then I'm gonna go to sleep. And then tomorrow I'm gonna refine this a lot further. But yeah, so far, very positive where it's at. This is the latest version of my toothbrush holder. I printed it out this morning and it looks a little bit different. It's a little bit taller and a little bit narrower, but it does all the same things. We've got little reed switches that actually detect whether a toothbrush is on here or is it on here, and those work super reliably. I'm very happy with this. Currently, it's just running off of the USB still, so I still have the battery on the side. I'm gonna reprint this in a different filament because this one is the wrong color for our bathroom and also is very moist, which just leads to a whole bunch of stringing, and it's great for prototyping, but God have I not looked after this filament. But yeah, we are like, I want to say 80% of the way there. A lot of the rest of the way there is just the code, because the 3D model is great. These are working beautifully and everything actually fits on it. So on the back here, I've also got a slot to like put my battery in. The little ESP32 is in there as well. The switches are in there and it's working beautifully. I'm very happy with this. So printing it in a better filament, doing all the code, and then we can do final assembly. I'm thirsty. Oh, I'm out of water. Okay, so after all of the design, prototyping, self-doubt, it's finally done. I've programmed it with ESPHome to use deep sleep and everything like that, so currently it's asleep. I did have to set up a little helper inside of Home Assistant in order to actually keep it awake if I want to do updates or anything like that. It also reports the battery voltage whenever the actual toothbrush is in use, so you get updates on battery life. And if I remove one of these, I'm having to use files as a stand-in because the toothbrush is a little too tall. It won't be a problem when it's installed like slightly up in the air, but if I remove one of these, it detects it and it also starts counting like how long you're actually using the toothbrush. So if I was to just filibuster like everybody in the government does when they want to block something that they don't want to be out in the public, we're still waiting for the files, by the way, and we put this back, it tells us that we've been using it for... Hello? Why is it saying unknown? This worked earlier. One moment, please. Okay, so I think I fixed it. It was primarily my fault. So I had a little bug where if I lifted a toothbrush, it would start a 2-second session on both of the toothbrushes, which just kind of appeared like a mess in the data, so I wanted to fix it. But the fix I implemented actually just prevented it from counting after it woke up from sleep. So hopefully now it works. So if I remove a toothbrush, it is detected like so. And after a short amount of time, I put it back, it shows me that I used it for 9 seconds. Perfect! And the other one, just so I know that it definitely works this time without it causing me any issues. And damn it, okay, well, that did work. And now I can also put this one back. And that also works. Perfect! Cool. Okay, let's go install this in the bathroom. We do actually have a regular toothbrush holder and toothpaste holder, but one time a snail came in through the window during the night and it went all over our toothbrushes and then went to sleep under a sponge. So we've not used this toothbrush holder ever since, so I should probably remove it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna do a test to see whether it actually works as well as I want it to work. And now, when I put my toothbrush back, it should tell me that I brushed for 187 seconds. That worked perfectly. I'm actually really happy with this. We're gonna see how long the actual battery life lasts, but so far, it's looking pretty good. So I guess with that, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Support me on Patreon if you can. And I'll see you in the next episode. Also, I'll be coming to open source. Completely forgot about it. I keep needing to mention this. I'm coming to open source this year. I will be there the whole weekend. I'm so excited. I keep forgetting to tell everyone. Come say hi. Goodbye. Do you even hide? Well, that ruined the take, didn't it?